Mental illness is a condition that affects the mind and mood, often leading to changes in behavior. It can be difficult to watch someone you love struggle with mental health issues. Here are 10 signs of mental illness you should never ignore. Number 1. You may not believe this, but depression is the first sign of mental illness. Depression, as a sign of mental illness, isn't always easy to spot. People who are depressed feel tired, unmotivated, and disconnected from life. They may have low energy, a hard time concentrating or making decisions, and feeling overwhelmed by everyday tasks. Although this seems like a normal state at first, the symptoms should raise a red flag that something is wrong. So many people don't consider depression as a sign of mental illness. However, depression is not just the first sign of a mental illness, but it is actually an early warning sign. It's important that you pay attention to this warning sign, because many more serious conditions, such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, can have the same symptoms. Number 2. Another sign of mental illness is anxiety. Anxiety is a mental illness that affects people of all ages and walks of life. It can be triggered by many things, including fear, worry, and uncertainty. At its height, it can be debilitating and lead to a variety of symptoms, such as panic attacks, insomnia, and the inability to function normally in everyday life. Mental illness is a serious issue that deserves to be discussed openly. There are many signs of mental illness, but anxiety is one of the most prominent. It's important to recognize the symptoms and seek help as soon as possible if you think someone you know may be experiencing these problems. Number 3. Panic disorders are another sign of mental illness. According to the Befriends Worldwide, a mental health charity, 1 in 4 people suffer from panic attacks. The person experiencing a panic attack may fear that they are going crazy, or that something is wrong with their body. This type of disorder has been shown to be related to a number of other mental illnesses, including obsessive compulsive disorder and phobias. People with panic disorders have feelings of intense fear and worry, accompanied by physical symptoms, such as sweating, shaking, and a rapid heartbeat. Some people with anxiety problems have a phobia about certain situations, whereby they are able to recognize their fear. For some people, these fears come out of nowhere. Number 4. Obsessive compulsive disorder is another sign of having a mental illness. The American Psychiatric Association defines OCD as an anxiety disorder whereby a person has recurring and unwanted thoughts or sensations. They are usually intrusive and distressing, and that they try to ignore or remove. It mainly consists of the need to perform repetitive behaviors, such as washing hands and checking door locks. You might not be aware of it, but many people with OCD hold a deep fear of germs and contamination. This fear is often based on a belief that they cannot keep themselves safe from constantly washing their hands or giving up something because it is dirty. Number 5. Posttraumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is another sign of having a mental illness. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a mental illness that develops in people who have experienced or witnessed a trauma. It can trigger flashbacks, nightmares, and anxiety attacks that make it difficult to function day to day. People who experience PTSD often have trouble sleeping, eating, and concentrating. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a mental illness that can occur after a traumatic event, such as rape, physical assault, war, or natural disaster. Research has shown that people with PTSD are often neglected by society. Number 6. Another sign of having a mental illness is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a mental illness that affects the way someone thinks, feels, and interacts with others. People with this disorder often experience hallucinations and delusions that cause a great deal of distress in their lives. Schizophrenia is a mental disorder that affects how we think, feel, and behave. It occurs when there is a defect in the way the brain processes information. Schizophrenics may experience some of their symptoms as hallucinations or delusions. Schizophrenia can manifest itself in many different ways. Some of the common signs of having schizophrenia are hearing voices, paranoia, hallucinations, and delusions. Number 7. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, is a sign of mental illness. ADHD is a mental condition which impacts a person's ability to focus and control impulses. Symptoms of ADHD can vary from person to person, but generally include inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. However, there are many people who may have symptoms of ADHD without knowing that they have the condition. Getting a diagnosis for ADHD is a good idea to make sure you are not one of these people. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, is a mental illness that can be associated with other complex conditions, such as anxiety, depression, and even substance abuse. ADHD is an impulse control disorder that impacts the person's ability to pay attention and regulate behavior. ADHD can be managed through lifestyle changes and medications. Number 8. Having a bipolar disorder is another sign of mental illness. Bipolar disorder can cause intense mood swings, making it difficult for sufferers to maintain relationships and work productivity. Bipolar disorder causes extreme shifts in moods, causing individuals to fluctuate between periods of mania and depression. Although it is not easy to live with, there are many people who manage to cope with it. Bipolar is not easy for those who suffer from it. It can also be disheartening for those who care about them and the person's quality of life. In some cases, bipolar can even lead to suicide or murders. These are signs that someone needs help. Number 9. Borderline personality disorders come as a sign of mental illness. Borderline personality disorder is one of the most misunderstood mental illnesses. This disorder is characterized by a series of unstable and intense emotions, usually resulting in difficulty with relationships, work, and self-image. BPD can be hard to diagnose and can be confused with other mental disorders, such as depression or bipolar disorders. Borderline personality disorder is a mental illness that may be difficult to identify by symptoms alone. Symptoms include chronic feelings of emptiness, anxiety, anger, and erratic mood swings. These symptoms can be seen in people with an unstable sense of self, who also have difficulty regulating their emotions. Number 10. Antisocial personality disorders are a form and sign of mental illness. These manifest in an individual's inability to relate to others. They have a tendency to develop criminal behavior, including drug and alcohol abuse, and promiscuous sexual behavior. Antisocial personality disorders are a mental illness that has been around for centuries. The disorder is defined by a person's inability to understand the emotions of others. These people tend to be manipulative, self-centered, and sometimes violent. Antisocial personality disorders are often accompanied by other mental health problems, such as depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, and substance abuse. Antisocial personality disorders are a mental disorder characterized by a pattern of disregard and violation of the rights of others. They can cause people to be irresponsible, unreliable, and aggressive.